Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about study tips for medical coding students and how to stay motivated while you're studying. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. I have been a medical coder for over 10 years. Lately, I've been getting lots of questions of like, I'm studying, but I'm losing my motivation. How do I stay motivated? What are some really good study tips for medical billing and coding? If you are in one of these medical billing and coding programs, it is a lot of information all at one time. And sometimes it can get overwhelming. And just know that when you are starting in one of these programs, that you're basically learning lots of medical stuff. If you've never been in the medical field before, it is a lot. I came into the field with no previous background in medical, none. And when I did, I had the benefit of being a reader. And if you are a reader, this really is going to come in handy right about now. There are no shortcuts, my people, okay? There are no shortcuts to learning this stuff. There is no, oh, I want an easy way. It is literally about the heavy lifting. You have to be willing to do the heavy lifting. And by heavy lifting, I mean reading, working on flashcards, finding alternative ways to study as far as like watching videos if you are more of a visual learner, checking out audio books if you are an auditory learner, things that are going to help you to learn. There is no magic bullet when it comes to trying to figure out all of this stuff. Everything should be broken down into manageable blocks. When I see people start to burn out, it's because when they start talking to me, they're telling me all the things that they're doing. And it's sort of like disorganized and sort of all over the place. They need to learn this, they need to learn that, they need to learn this, they need to learn that. And there's really no sort of direction. The best thing that you can do to combat this is to literally get a calendar and write out what you're going to do during the week. It starts with having really good discipline. And you have to be really disciplined when you're trying to get through these programs. Now, these programs can be, hopefully you are in a good paced one, like 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months plus, right? And if you are, then you're doing good because this is a manageable time to learn medical terminology, anatomy, physiology, medical law and ethics, everything about HIPAA, and how to do coding, period. Whether it is learning just the ICD-10-CM and the CPT book, or ICD-10-CM, the procedure code, but the CPT book and the ICD-10-PCS book. Whether you are going through either one of those, you have to be disciplined enough to set yourself on a schedule. And when your mind is made up, no one can undo this. You have to be able to make up your mind. There's a song by Jon Pardi, which I love. Jon Pardi, if you don't know, is a country singer. And there's a line that he says in his song that says, there's no change in a made-up mind or something like that. Something like that. Can't remember how it goes now. It was really good. I was driving home today and I heard it. And I said, yep, that is truly true. Because when you set your mind to something, you can really do anything you want to do. But a lot of times people, it's hard to stay motivated if you're the only one that's doing it, like in your household, or if you are the only one among your friends that is studying to do this. If you are in a online school, try to get into a really good study group. And when I say a really good study group, get with people that are like-minded like you, all right? Because you'll notice who wants to study and who just wants to be there just to pass the exam so they can get out and to get into the real world and, you know, not really understanding the full scope of what's going to happen here. Luckily for you, you've tried to do research and hopefully stumbled onto this video as a result. But the thing is, get yourself a calendar, write everything out in manageable phases. If you're getting hung up on medical terminology, just know that you just need to learn your prefixes, your suffixes, and your root words. Once you learn those, and the breakdown of those is so much easier than trying to sit here and straight memorize all of these medical terms that you may never ever see. If you just can understand what you're reading, you can look up everything else later. You don't have to memorize this stuff, but you do have to know the breakdown of the words so that you can put it all together. That was how I learned, and that was how I told them when I was going to these trade schools to go and see what I wanted to do. They wrote out this one school that I went to wrote out a huge word, and it was EGD. And so I told him, oh yeah, that's an EGD. And he's like, well, how did you know that? Do you have any background in medical? Nobody gets these. And the reason that I know these is because I knew the breakdown of each of those word parts. So that was how I told him whatever the word was. So this can be you as well, but you just have to not think of it as, oh, I got to learn all this stuff. You just have to break it down into something that is manageable for you, and break things down into phases as well. You have your medical terminology, you do maybe another day of anatomy, and then you're working on maybe reading for your coding part, and then just sort of break it down that way. Because if you do like 3 days of this stuff, right, where you're dedicating that time 3 days a week, 4 days a week to doing all of this, to doing different subjects, it is going to get easier for you to get into a routine. And when you're doing that, it's going to start speeding up your reading. The thing that I see a lot of when people get hung up on is the reading part. They see this huge paragraph of words when they're looking at these op reports, and they think, oh my gosh, I got to read all of these words. You have to learn how to spot words very quickly. It is going to be about your speed, and don't expect in the beginning for you to be entirely so fast. Right now that you're in school is a time for you to be learning all of this stuff. It is a time for you to be sitting there and taking your time enough to start learning how to spot the big words and how to spot what's actually happening. With that in mind, then you'll be able to start gaining speed later on. But the more that you read, the faster you're going to get at reading. Reading is like a muscle. You got to work this out, and you have to continue to be consistent with it. Consistency is key. Perfection is not. Did you hear what I said there? Consistency is key. Perfection is not. A lot of people are striving for perfection as well. And I understand. I'm a perfectionist myself. But at the same time, I understand that there's going to be times when I don't have to be perfect, but I have to be just knowledgeable enough to get myself where I need to be. And then I can work on the perfection part. That's pretty much how I've learned orthopedics. A lot of people get hung up on injury coding, and I love injury coding. It is second nature to me because I've enjoyed the journey to learning this, and I've taken the time to learn it, and it's very fascinating to me. So when I'm able to explain it, it does make me happy, and it's a snowball effect. But I did this because I said in the beginning, I don't have to be perfect at this. I just need to be knowledgeable enough to get to the next part. And that was how I started to build my knowledge base. I took that pressure off myself mentally, and I was able to move forward. When people get themselves caught up in stressing themselves out mentally, and they say, I don't know if I can do this, and I've got to take this test. I still don't know how to code. I still don't know what I'm doing. Everybody feels this way in school. I'm going to let you in on that secret. Everybody feels that way in school. But you have to be able to put that feeling aside and be able to go with what you know. You know more than you think you do. And a lot of times people are just not giving themselves that credit. So you have to stop and think, how far have you gone in the program? How much have you learned? And if you really stop and think about like, well, I learned anatomy and I learned physiology and I've learned medical terminology and I'm still reading the guidelines. Now you're starting to see how you've made so much more progress than you're giving yourself credit for. And that's a shame, right? When we don't give ourselves credit and thinking that maybe we're just, thinking too highly of ourselves. And that's not the case. Sometimes we have to be our own cheerleader, and you have to dig deep and be able to recognize when you've done well so that you can keep moving forward. Okay? The other thing that I say, and it kind of goes back to getting into a study group with like-minded people, this means you have to surround yourself on the outside with like-minded people as well. If you know that there's people that are not supporting you with your goals, which is to get this medical coding credential, then you need to keep what you say to them about what you're doing to a minimum. And I know this is hard because a lot of people want to share. We are in a very sharing society now, and everybody wants to post every single emotion. You can't, guys. That's why a lot of times you'll hear me say, even on my channel, I've got stuff going on in the background that I'm not ready to bring here because it's my personal process. You guys need to adopt the same thought process, because a lot of times when people get so many people involved in what they're doing, and whether they think, well, I'm really just very happy because I'm in school and I'm doing all these things. There are so many naysayers out there, and these naysayers, they can get in your head like that. Whether it's from a Facebook medical coding group, and I will always tell you guys, don't get in those Facebook medical coding groups, because those are the most, it's like falling down a rabbit hole. And I'm sure there could potentially be some, but I have never personally seen one that has been so positive. All I've ever seen is these Facebook medical coding groups running people away from the field because they say, I couldn't get in, I couldn't pass my test, and I didn't learn anything. If you're not learning, you need to look for alternatives to learn. Would it make me upset if I paid so much money to a school and they weren't teaching me? Of course. But then at the same time, you're in that program already. Just get the most that you can out of them and try to learn all this other stuff on your own, because it's going to be worth it in the end, right? The goal is getting that credential. Now, looking for alternative ways of learning, I do offer one-on-one tutoring if you're interested. I do it over Zoom, and I mean, I'm in the Central Time Zone, so I do work with people on both coasts. So if you're interested in that, it's $25 per hour. If you are not a member of my Patreon channel, if you are a member of Patreon, it's $20 per hour for the first hour. And if you need another hour, it's $15 an hour after that, either if you're with Patreon or without Patreon. Because I know that sometimes just 1 hour, we can speed right through 1 hour. And just sometimes having that one-on-one, I think, is sometimes helpful for some, because it's literally clearing out the noise. There's nobody else. It's just me and you. And we are going over whatever issue that you particularly have. I have so much experience in the outpatient setting. My inpatient experience is by the book, literally by the book. So I have over 10 years in this field. And because of this, I really like doing what I do. You guys know I love what I'm doing. But if you need help, just let me know and we will work something out as far as getting you scheduled. Now, the other thing is, going back to what I was saying about the Facebook medical coding groups, those sites, anything like that related, it becomes a pack mentality too that I've seen. And I wanted to talk about that as well. Because if one person falls down that rabbit hole complaining and saying that they didn't learn anything, that they can't pass the test, that they can't find a job, that is scaring other people. Yes, there are people that can't find a job, but there's many reasons why they can't find a job. There is because their resume doesn't look good, or they can't pass a background check, or they can't pass the initial assessment test by the facility or by the doctor's office. So there's a lot of things that can go along with why they're not getting hired. So don't even think about that. If you're in school, you need to concentrate on what is in front of you, which is getting through that program and getting through to the next module and making sure that you fully grasp. You don't have to memorize, just grasp it. All right. I do a lot of fun exercises on my Patreon channel. I try to do different word puzzles to help with medical terminology. I also do worksheets talking about different subjects. So that is something that you may want to consider. And to get all of that access, $1 per month. And I make it like that because I don't ever want people to say, well, I don't have a lot of money. Well, this is just $1 and you get access to all of those things. So, and you get to know a little bit more about me. But not that this is supposed to be an ad, but I want you guys to know that these things are available. And there's so many more options to doing what you're doing when it comes to studying. I do occasionally post links that I like to different things, to CMS, to NCCI. I've posted lots of links. So always be sure to check that community tab and see if there's something that I've posted, because these are all free resources that I post in the community tab. So that is something to think about as well. But it is a lot, and it's not an easy road by any means, but it is worth it. Anything that you have to work so hard for is eventually worth it, as long as you get into it, and as long as you give your all, then you can get somewhere, and you will be able to see that eventually down the road. But you know, I want you guys to just keep faith, and just, even when it gets hard, just keep going. That's all you can do. Don't stop just because it's boring or it's not exciting or you're just tired of reading. If you're tired of reading, go watch a YouTube video on a surgery. And even though you haven't started learning to do the CPT procedures yet, or the ICD-10 PCS yet, just the fact that you can watch these very fascinating surgeries can help you, because as they're doing these surgeries, they're narrating them. And when they're narrating them, those words get in your head and you start to say, oh, so that's what that means. When you read it, when you listen to it and watch it versus when you read it later, I'm telling you guys, it is an amazing feeling, because you're like, oh, that's what that means. Now I get it. I did that when I was struggling with shoulder surgeries. I was doing a lot of the same-day surgeries, and I was having to look at these videos because I was struggling with the coding part, and I was just like, how are they doing this? And so watching those videos literally made everything go from night to day, okay? And I was able to understand it. But it's exploring those additional ways of study that is really going to help you and keep you motivated. And then at the end of the day, your biggest motivation should be, I'm going to be in a brand new career. This is going to be something that can fulfill me mentally and just intellectually. And it's something that is here to stay. So that is something to think about. That's my advice for today. But yes, guys, stay with it. And whatever you do, just keep going. Don't shoot for perfection. Shoot for consistency. That is the key. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up. I will leave the link for my Patreon channel down in the description box below if you're interested. And I will see y'all on the next episode. So if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider, or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.